Technology for a safer workplace. In a world of coronavirus lockdowns, tech innovations play a key role as businesses start to reopen.
Empowering women and girls in Bauchi State with the help of UNESCO, digital learning devices are meant to improve their literacy and educational capabilities.
COVID-19 and Native Americans. As tourists travel to nearby national parks, the Navajo Nation sees a rise in coronavirus cases and the community pitches in to help.
Hello and thanks for tuning in to the show that goes around the continent to bring you stories near and far. I'm Chamberlain Osoa, Channels Television here in Lagos. I'm joined by Vincent Makori with a new look from Voice of America in Washington. Hello, Vincent.
Thanks. I'm Vincent Makori, happy to be with you again for another edition of Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, the Voice of America has reduced staffing at VOA headquarters in Washington. So as you see, our broadcast will look a little different today and in the near future. We appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. Let's start off with the latest from Nigeria. Chamberlain also in Lagos brings you that story.
That's right. 50,000 women and girls in Bauchi State are being targeted for digital learning in formal and non-formal sectors to improve their literacy and educational capabilities. In addition, the group is being empowered with over 2,000 digital learning devices under the Phase 2 project of School Meets Learners approach of UNESCO and P&G's Always. Governor Bala Mohammed of Bauchi State wants the project to become a global flagship for reduction of out-of-school children while also enhancing the literacy capabilities of the womenfolk. Hajar Aliyu has details.
Women and girls in Bauchi State receive tablets containing content to enhance their learning capacities. This support is coming from UNESCO and one of its private partners for 40,000 women who can neither read nor write and 10,000 low-performing girls in GSS2 across 6 local government areas of Bauchi State.
These nouns are known as collective nouns.
It's the Phase 2 of the School Meets Learners project, and facilitators are positive about providing modern solutions to educational challenges, especially as COVID-19 has further exposed the benefits of digital learning.
With the disruption of the school calendar by massive school closures across the country, indeed across the world, as well as the huge number of out-of-school children in Nigeria, this project is very timely.
Very soon, we will go back to learning in our homes as it used to take place during the Victorian era. And this learning will take place through no means but through the digital means.
Governor Bala Mohammed sees the project as one that can be developed and sustained by the state.
The devices will make sure we can see how we can replicate, we can incentivize, and make sure that they are useful and operational in our local terrain.
The government has also given its word to settle all pending obligations with the hope that the literacy challenges bedeviling the state for decades would be minimized. Hajara Aliyu, Channels Television News.
All right, let's get more now. We're joined by Hafsat Baba, Commissioner for Human Services and Social Development in Kaduna State. Thank you for joining us today on Africa 54. Let's start with this. You've seen that report. Do you think that efforts such as this are strategic enough to address the deficits in women and girl child education in the North?
Well, I think it is a welcome development. And I believe that whatever we are doing, it is better to start, and it is better late than never. And whatever the number we are able to reach out to, I think it is a plus for us. It is a welcome development, but I've also seen the clip. So my concern is that 40,000 women that do not know how to read and write are given tablets. So I hope that there's going to be an orientation for them. I don't know what the content of the tablet is, either it is in English or in Hausa. So, but whatever it is, I know that reaching out to 40,000 women that do not know how to read and write and then educating them, it's a very welcome development. And then also 10,000 that are low-performing girls, I also believe that it is a welcome development. So it is a good program.
Do you think that those numbers, the 40,000 women and 10,000 girls, is that a manageable number, given that the target is efficiency?
Well, I think it will be done in phases. I believe so. When I heard from the governor. So it is not something that he's going to stop at 50, but I think it is something that is going to be replicated. And if it is a program that is being supported by a development partner, I believe that at the end of the day, the government of Bauchi State and any other government in northern Nigeria who is also into this program will be able to continue with that program.
Now, there's a research finding which indicates that the current female adult literacy rate in Nigeria is 59.4% compared to the male adult literacy rate, which is 74.4%. Are there any early hopes for a balance, particularly in light of the belief that until equal number of girls and boys are in school, it will be impossible to build the knowledge necessary to eradicate poverty and hunger and combat disease?
Well, I believe that there's hope. If you look at the percentage and also the investment by various government in education. Let me talk about Kaduna State. For Kaduna State, we're investing heavily in our girl child education. And also there's provision for second chance education program where you have dropouts and also married women going back to learn. So you should also realize that there are some certain challenges that as a girl or as a woman we're also facing. We should not eliminate the barriers of culture, tradition, and sometimes religion. But we're trying to break those barriers to ensure that we educate our children. In Kaduna State, we have free compulsory primary and secondary education for our girls to encourage them to go to school. So, and even in the budget, we're providing heavily for our children and investing in education and health. So I believe the bedrock of every society is investing in its people, most especially the girls. So I'm sure even if we're not able to have 50-50, but 50 to 70, I think is a good number with the intervention programs that we're having. But I also hope that very soon we're going to be able to, if not 50-50, but at least maybe close to that.
All right. We also do hope that you achieve progress faster in Kaduna State, the one you're working on. But let me move on to this next one. Talk to us about the concerns that are in some quarters that African leaders leave some of their responsibilities to these development partners. Do you think that such concerns are justified?
Yes, they're very much justified because we're always looking at any program that is being supported by a development partner. Definitely there's the starting point and also the closing. So we always look at if the window of opportunity closes, what do we do? So that is the reason why our leaders need to actually take action and ensure that at least, you know, there's continuation of whatever program that is being brought and supported by our international partners. But don't forget also that there are also indigenous non-governmental organizations, civil society organizations, and so many partners that also are funding such projects. And then they are also assisting our young ones in terms of education. So I believe that even with the provision, increasing our budget towards education, I believe that we can be able to take care of, any deficit in case if there's any. But for Kaduna State, actually, our development partners are always working with us when we are doing our sector implementation plan to see where the gaps are so that they can be able to support. So I believe that even if they wind up, Kaduna State will be able to stand on its own and invest in its people, most especially the girl child education.
Let's wind down with this, which is according to the International Center for Research on Women. It says the education of a girl receives the largest predictor of the age she'll get married. Now, do you see programs such as this as addressing child marriage practice in some parts of the country?
Absolutely. Because if we are giving compulsory free primary and secondary education, we're looking at a child that will start her primary school at the age of 5 or 6, and by the time she finishes the secondary school, she will be like about 18 years of age. And as at that time, she's already a matured person. She can be able to decide what she wants to do. She will also have a voice, and she can decide. And she is better off economically. She can stand on her feet. She can also decide to continue her education. So I believe this compulsory free primary and secondary education is a provision to make the children mature. So in Kaduna, we are doing that because in Kaduna State, as I'm speaking to you, it is free compulsory primary and secondary education.
All right, then Hafsat Baba, Commissioner for Human Services and Social Development in Kaduna State, thank you for talking to us today on Africa 54.
Thank you very much for having me.
Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Vincent Makori in Washington. There are several ways to limit the spread of coronavirus, such as washing hands and social distancing. But people living with dementia struggle to remember these precautions to fend off a disease that is particularly deadly to the elderly. Mohammed Yusuf reports from Kakamega, Western Kenya.
81-year-old Azibeta Al-Khaya constantly forgets her favorite verse in the Bible. Her son reminds her. The mother of 10 has dementia, a degenerative and incurable condition that affects 61,000 Kenyans, 2.5 million people in Africa, and 50 million people worldwide. She tries to follow the routine, but sometimes she forgets to wash her hands. It is not her fault, he says. But she is reminded when she forgets to follow the routine. We set the alarm on her phone, which reminds her what to do at a certain time.
Sana kama simu yake iko on kwa sababu ameweka alarm inamuamsha wakati fulani ya kufanya vitu.
The World Health Organization defines dementia as a disorder in which there is a deterioration in memory, thinking, behavior, and the ability to perform everyday activities. People with dementia, like Azibeta Al-Khaya, are at greater risk from COVID-19 not only because they don't remember safety precautions, but also due to their age. COVID-19 is most likely to be deadly to those over age 60 years.
So it is very important that as a counselor, as a community worker, we come to them, we visit, and of course we maintain the social distance the way we are doing it, and try to help them understand the changes with the season. Because they need to understand that the season has changed. And there's so much that is happening that is beyond our control. We need to tell our patients that their immunity already is compromised. And if we allow corona in their homes, then it will not be a good situation for them.
Elizabeth Mutunga is the founder of Alzheimer's and dementia organizations in Kenya.
Okay, most of the people we work with, unfortunately, when they come to us, are usually in the middle stage and towards the late stage of dementia. So a lot of them, we can't do much with them. But with the caregivers, we give them tips on how to do this. And we are having fortnightly calls, Zoom calls with the caregivers to give them tips on how to care for their loved ones.
The health precautions and restrictions due to the virus have helped people know each other's health needs.
We have issues on positive side on this, in the sense is that people, families are noticing the cognitive dysfunction in the elderly because they're spending more time with them indoors at home.
As populations age, the World Health Organization projects 82 million people worldwide will suffer dementia in 2030 and 152 million in 30 years' time. Mohammed Yusuf for VOA News, Kakamega, Kenya.
Egypt's government has revamped Tahrir Square, dotting the space occupied nearly a decade ago by throngs of anti-regime protesters with pharaonic monuments and private security guards. Critics say the project seems designed to tighten control and prevent future protests, while some archaeologists worry about the preservation of 4 sandstone sphinxes placed on a busy roundabout.
Once the cradle of Egypt's revolt, Cairo's Tahill Square gets a makeover. Officials say they are improving the square in line with famous plazas in Europe, and its facelift, which includes new lighting on repainted buildings, has attracted some praise on social media for its grandiose effect. However, some critics say the project appears designed to tighten control on a symbolic public space and prevent future protests.
And this is what we did in Tahrir in 2011, where people not only sat together, but they conversed with each other, they had meetings, they had meaningful discussions. They also danced and sang and put placards. And that is something that is, as simple as it is deeply subversive as far as the Egyptian state is concerned. And I think what we're seeing now is a concerted, deliberate, and very self-conscious decision on the part of the state to prevent this from ever happening again.
Some archaeologists are concerned about the 4 ram-headed sandstone phoenix placed round in the center of the square. They were relocated from Karnak Temple Complex in Luxor, a UNESCO World Heritage Site 500 kilometers south of Cairo.
Currently, I think that there would be, and there is indeed, a debate about moving archaeological remains and decontextualizing them. And so one is the argument of decontextualization, and then the argument is for the artifact safety. And I have to say that granite is probably going to manage quite all right. However, the sphinxes are made out of sandstone and are a more sensitive stone, especially since the climate is changing and it rains more frequently in Cairo, and there is a lot of traffic and pollution. So I think that that is not best antiquities practice in terms of the sphinxes.
2 years later, a large crowd gathered in the square once again to push for and later celebrate the removal of Egypt's first freely elected president, Mohamed Morsi, by the then army chief, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Mr. al-Sisi's supporters see 2013 as a correction that allowed him to gain the presidency a year later and stabilize the country. But for his opponents, that year marked the start of a crackdown that ended the free-flowing atmosphere of the uprising and its aftermath.
It's time now for a short break. As we do, we'd like to remind you to visit our website, channelstv.com, for news and programming around the clock. You can also find us at youtube.com/channelsweb. Still to come, how Olympic athlete and pole vaulting record breaker Dora Mafuti spends time between practice and volunteering to help her country at a pandemic emergency center. She's doing her part to combat COVID-19. That's after the break.
Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. As businesses start to reopen amid the COVID-19 pandemic, some are turning to technology to figure out how to make workplaces safer. Michelle Quinn reports on the trade-offs.
Before the pandemic, this sensor mounted over a door had one job: let building managers know how office space, bathrooms, cafeterias were being used. Now that information is helping companies figure out how to make workplaces safe.
There's a sensor that gets mounted above a point of entry, and as people enter and exit, we use infrared laser light and a whole bunch of really cool algorithms to both generate and analyze depth data. And that depth data gives us a really clear understanding of how many people enter and exit a space.
Companies are turning to technology like this as they try to figure out how to get people safely back to work. Drones that monitor from the air social distancing and face mask wearing. wearable devices that buzz when employees are too close for too long. The pandemic has accelerated employers' experimentation with tech in the workplace.
We really need new experimentation, especially around worker health and safety. But we have to tread really carefully here, because otherwise we could risk institutionalizing things, have negative consequences for workers in their workplaces.
One of those potential consequences? Increased surveillance of employees that erodes their sense of privacy. Unlike cameras inside workplaces, density sensor doesn't identify individuals.
There's a fine line there, and you can still maintain people's safety without removing their privacy.
Density works with companies, universities, and other organizations to prevent too many people pulling in one place.
When maybe a bathroom is full and people shouldn't go in there yet, or things like elevator lobbies or places where people tend to congregate.
Technology as gatekeeper. It may be a trade-off many will come to accept. Michelle Quinn, VOA News, San Francisco.
A young Tunisian athlete and member of the national team is donating her time at an emergency center to help combat the coronavirus pandemic. Dora Mafuti, who is a National Olympics athlete and pole vaulting record breaker, has been splitting her time between practice and volunteering to help her country.
Dora Mafuti is a 29-year-old who specializes in pole vault and dreams of a career in both sports and medicine. As the novel coronavirus pandemic swept through her country, Mafuti shifted much of her attention to volunteering at a medical center designed to take samples from suspected COVID-19 cases.
It has become normal to take these types of samples in light of this pandemic. He is someone who entered Tunisia 7 days ago and exhibited symptoms of the coronavirus. He's at home now and has called us, so we're going to meet him. We must take all precautions to protect ourselves.
Gearing up in an ambulance van, Mafuti puts on her protective mask, gloves, and suit each day before heading out to people's homes to take their samples. She is one of 8 volunteer medics working at Tunis Urgent Medical Center who are trying to ease the burden on the pandemic's front line after a call for assistance by the Ministry of Health.
At first, my colleagues and I were watching how things work here, and then after a while, we started doing the same interventions that doctors who work here do.
Although seemingly different, Mafuti says that medicine and sports are complementary, adding that sports helped her throughout her medical career by teaching her patience and focus. Tunisia has largely controlled a first wave of the coronavirus, but a recent government collapse may complicate efforts to handle any new surge in coronavirus cases.
As the COVID-19 pandemic grips the United States, even remote areas are suffering from the outbreak. VOA's Arturo Martinez reports from the Navajo Nation in Utah that tourists traveling to nearby national parks appear to have helped spread the disease there, and residents are trying to help bring relief.
The main purpose of our relief program is to deliver goods and home supplies, home food. So we try our best to help those that are either quarantined or self-isolating themselves. The virus has devastated the Navajo Nation due to factors like lack of health infrastructure, lack of health resources, lack of running water to people's homes, and lack of electricity. The Utah portion of the Navajo Nation is a hot spot, and we are doing our best here to help people during these trying times. We drive a lot of miles, that's for sure. Some people live way out in the middle of nowhere, miles from any store, miles from the nearest town. This is like off the grid. We meet a lot of beautiful people, and we see a lot of nice, beautiful places as well. We are unloading some donations that came from the Rotary Club here in northern Utah, and they got 5 vehicles full of stuff. So a lot of the people that are helping combat this virus are corporations, private donors, volunteers we have. I mean, we service all these communities because so many people want to help out. The great team that I have with my program coordinator, Sahara, my good friend Sahara, should really help me out.
We don't always have produce, we do today.
Every person that comes through our line is either a familiar face or a potential family member. Make deliveries for elders 65 and over, families in need, and those who have tested positive here within the Utah Navajo community. Imagine a state the size of West Virginia with only 11 grocery stores.
This is a woman that she hasn't had food for several days and she doesn't have transportation.
So happy to find you.
Oh yeah.
Huh?
I'm here by myself.
Oh, just you?
Yeah.
You know, you see somebody in trouble and you go. You don't think about it, you just react. And that's what happened. That's how it started for me. And it's affected me deeply because you see people hurting, you see people hungry or people asking for help, and you see people who are sick with the virus, and you know, it affects you, you know, it moves you. You think you know who you are, but you know, life will smack you inside the head out of nowhere and be like, no, you don't.
Well, and that's our show for today. You can find all the continent's top news and world news online at voaafrica.com. Check it out. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. Channels Television has our last word from Lagos.
Well, thank you, Vincent. We look forward to bringing you another show next week. ChannelsTV.com is your source for news and other programming. I'm Chamberlain Uzor. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.